Okay friends, it's no secret in the uke world that we absolutely despise the E major chord. Many of us spend so much time just practicing this chord and trying to perfect it, but what if we're just going about playing it the wrong way? And in addition to that, what if we're just thinking about it in the wrong way? First things first is we need to take a step back from our instrument. It's easy for us to forget that an instrument is simply a tool. Music is what we're trying to convey to the listener. And sometimes we don't take the time to understand the underlying musical concepts and the way that we can apply it to this instrument. On fretted string instruments, be it uke or guitar or even electric bass, we often get in the mindset of playing chord shapes. And that is a great way to think sometimes, but it's also important to understand what a chord is and how it is constructed. And that can give us alternative options for how to play each and every chord on an instrument. So if we look at an E major scale, we're going to select notes that are contained in this scale to create our E major triad. Now, when we're talking about a triadic chord, it means that it has 3 notes in it. And those 3 notes will be the root, the third, and the fifth. So if we take this from our scale, our root is the name of the scale, our E. The third note in our scale is the third, and that is a G sharp. And then the fifth note in our scale, the fifth, is a B. So no matter what E major chord we are playing, these 3 notes need to be contained in the chord for it to truly be an E major chord. So if we look at the E major chord that we're typically taught when we're starting, 1, 4, open, 2. What notes do we have in here? So our lowest note on the C string as well as on the E string, we are doubling these notes, are an E. Then we have the G sharp, our third, on our G string on the 1st fret, and we have the B under the 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of our A string. So this is a root position E major chord, which tells us that the notes are in order and the lowest note is the name of the chord itself, our root, as we said previously. But the thing is, we're playing 2 of the same note. Why would we do that? Now, if we look at most other instruments, we're not really able to play unison or the same notes at the same time. If we think about a piano, if we wanted to play an E, we would play an E. We can't play 2 of the same ones. We don't need to do this on uke either. There's absolutely no reason for us to double this E. It can be a nice textural change because it gives us a sort of chorusing effect, or that the pitches due to the fretted string instrument is going to always be just a little bit out of tune when you play a unison note. But we don't need it unless we specifically want that effect. As we said earlier in the video, an E major chord only has 3 notes in it, an E, a G sharp, and a B. So let's not play 2 E's, and it's going to be a heck of a lot easier to play. A lot of people ask me if you can substitute an E7th for an E major chord, and no, you cannot, but sometimes you can, and I'll link to a video in the description about exactly that topic. But I want you to do right now is to actually voice an E7th chord. 1, 2, open, 2. So we have 4 notes in here now, and what's the odd one out? We said we have our E, our G sharp is exactly the same place, our B is in the same place. So the difference is on our C string, correct? We are playing a D on the 2nd fret here. We don't need that 7th, and we don't want that 7th because it is just a regular old E major chord, a triad in root position. So what we can do is voice an E7th chord and just lift up a little bit of pressure on your middle finger on the 2nd fret so that this note is muted. And then when we strum through, all we hear is an E major triad. And this is the same exact notes as playing this. The same exact notes in the same exact order, except we don't have that huge stretch in there. We just need to not fully press down on the C string, and there is your simple, easy as pie E major chord. So one of the great things about uke, or really any fretted string instrument, is that we're able to play the chord in different voicings, or by arranging those 3 notes differently. So let's look at some alternative ways that we can play an E major chord that give us some more options that might work better in some contexts, or might just feel or sound better to you. So the first one I want to look at is actually the same exact grouping of notes, but played in a different way on the instrument. We can play this as 4, 4, 4, and then we're going to mute our A string. I'm using my middle finger, ring finger, and pinky, and my pinky is just lightly touching the A string, so that when I strum through, we don't hear that note. And that gives us the same notes, but on different strings. We now have the E on the 4th fret of the C string. The pinky is covering the G sharp on the 4th fret of our E string, and the middle finger is covering the B, which is now contained on the 4th fret of our G string. So it's the same grouping of notes in a different way on the instrument. Now, if we already have this voicing down, especially if you're playing low G uke, you may want to add a B up top on the 2nd fret of your A string, giving us 4, 4, 4, 2. Now again, if you're playing re-entrant tuning or high G uke, this is going to double the outer voices and might give us some more of that chorusing effect, which can be desirable and can also be something we want to avoid. So we can take it like that. Now here's one last root position E major chord. So again, we have an E as our lowest note in the chord. So if we play like this, we will now bar across the 4th fret and put our pinky or ring finger on the 7th fret of our A string. And that's an E major chord. You can hear it, it sounds exactly the same notes in a different order, and we're just putting an octave E up top. Now after this, we can go to what's called an inversion of the chord. We've been playing in root position for now, which means that the E is the lowest. But what we're going to do is now put the 3rd of the chord, our G sharp, as the lowest note in the chord. And this will be based around our A major chord shape. Remember that any movable shape that we have, any bar chord, is always based off of an open position chord. It's just a matter of where we put it on the neck. So what I want you to do is finger an A major chord, 2, 1, open, open, but use your middle finger and your ring finger. Leave the 1st finger off. And all we're going to do is slide this on up. So this will go up to the 9th fret. The ring finger will be on the 9th fret, so it'll be 9, 8, and then we'll do a partial bar across the 7th fret on the E and A strings. So this gives us a G sharp under our middle finger, and then we have the E's on the 2 outer strings, and we have the B on the 7th fret of our E string. So there is our first inversion E major chord. And we can even put on the 11th fret, we can add our pinky, giving us an additional G sharp up top. And those are just a few ways that we can play our E major chord. There are probably 5 to 6 other ways that we can do this. But whenever you're learning a chord and whenever you're having trouble with it, sit down and think about how that chord is actually constructed outside the context of playing uke. We want to understand the music first, and then we can more effectively apply those concepts to any given instrument. I'll see y'all next week.